Okay, we're going to kick off today's event. We've got some people sort of still continuing to join us, but by the time we do the introductions and the preambles, we'll be able to hopefully have a few others that have sort of joined. So I'd like to welcome you all to the first Stride Making Good Trouble webinar, which is really exciting. And thank you so much to our amazing panel, but also to all the people that have taken the time out today to come along and join us. My name's Rob Ryan, and I'm the executive lead at Emerging Business with Life Without Barriers, and I'm going to MC this session today. So thanks for coming along. Now, I'll just do a quick sound check. Melinda, you hearing me okay? Very good. Okay. I'd like to start by acknowledging the Turrbal and the Yagara peoples of the First Nations owners of the lands I'm currently based on in the inner city in Brisbane, and pay respects to the elders past, present, and emerging across this land. And also, if you would like to identify where you are based and where you're coming from, that would be really appreciated. So the topic for our webinar today is let's talk about sex. And we know that it's a key part of preventing the sexual abuse and sexual assault of young people is talking directly to them about sex, about relationships, and about consent. And we're going to hear from an amazing panel, and we're going to also hear about sexual abuse, sexual assault, and what's happening in young people across Australia and what we can do particularly to help prevent it. We're also going to have a very first-hand look at the brand new sexual safety series, which is 6 videos for young people developed with a partnership between Life Without Barriers and the amazing One Vision Productions, and funded by the AUDA Foundation and Life Without Barriers. So it's really exciting, and we're looking forward to launching those in the context of this video and this webinar today. We're also recording the webinar, so it'll be available after this session if people want to follow up, or if you miss anything, or if you come in late. And we'll be discussing some sensitive topics today, so please take care. If at any time things are difficult, feel free to step out. Melinda and I are also available to have conversations with anybody after the event, if there's anything particularly that you feel you need to have a conversation about or you need support. And the Q&A section is open. We may not have time to answer questions during the session. If we do, we'll get a chance to have a look at it at the end of it. But if questions do come up that we don't answer, we will work towards responding to those by the end of the session, or at some time via an email after the session. So now I'd like to introduce our panel, and I'll get them to give a bit of a wave as they come through. So first of all, I'd like to introduce Melinda Clarke. So Melinda is the manager of our Child Safe organisation at Life Without Barriers, and amongst other things, she leads work including the We Put Children First Child Sexual Abuse Prevention campaign, and she's joining us from Gadigal country in Sydney. Hi, Melinda. Thanks for coming along. And then we've got Amanda Paton, who's on Whadjuk country in Western Australia in Perth, so a 2-hour time difference there. Amanda is the clinical psychologist and deputy director at the practice in the Australian Centre for Child Protection at the University of South Australia. So thanks for joining us, Amanda. Next, we've got Mark Robertson. So Mark is the founder and the CEO of One Vision Production, who I mentioned earlier has been the technical support behind this amazing project. And he has engaged with risk at youth and evidence-based mental health tools, music, art programs, and mentoring. And he joins us from the Budjalung country in Mullumbimby in northern New South Wales. Thanks, Mark. And finally, we have Ruben Sherriff, who's a proud Pakana man, a social work student, member of the NAPCAN Youth Speak Out Council, and joins us from Mowina, sorry, I think I got that wrong, country in Hobart in Tasmania. So thank you, Ruben, for joining us today. So to start off, we'd like to hear from Melinda in relation to the sexual safety series. How did the project start, and what are the videos about?
Thanks, Rob. Hi, everybody. These videos are a story of partnership, really. I've been working in child safety at Life Without Barriers for some years now, and it's important work because we support around 2,000 children and young people in out-of-home care. So we've done quite a bit of work talking with adults in our community about child sexual abuse prevention, and we have got some processes in place to talk with young children about preventative concepts and protective behaviours and body safety, etc. And we'd been grappling for some time with the problem of how to communicate directly with older children and young people around these issues of safety and respectful relationships and abuse prevention. We did some initial research to try and understand how young people in out-of-home care use digital platforms, and that was enough to tell us that Life Without Barriers building an app for young people in care was not the answer. And a couple of years ago, I discovered that One Vision Productions had won a grant from the Westpac Safer Children, Safer Communities program, and I got in touch with Mark. And I learned about One Vision's work with young people and the Empower app, which was in development, and that's what that grant was going towards. Mark will speak more about that later, but I started to think about the potential of this app to communicate messages about safety and respectful relationships to young people. And a little bit of time went by, and then last year I saw an opportunity for a small grant from the AUDA Foundation. They were seeking to fund projects to bring the benefits of the internet to Australians. And we won a grant to create a video series to enhance sexual safety for young people to be accessible on the Empower app. So that was how our partnership with One Vision Productions was born. We're grateful to the Australian Centre for Child Protection and the National Office for Child Safety, who had some input into the content along the way, and some members of NAPCAN Youth Speak Out, including Ruben and some others who reviewed the rough edits. So we've ended up with 6 videos. They're available from our website, and they will be available on the Empower app, and we'll share those details at the end. Importantly, they're not specific to young people in out-of-home care. They're for all young people. So I'm excited to share some of those videos with you today. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Melinda. Really exciting. And looking forward to hearing from you, Mark, later in relation to the technical design, but they are beautiful videos and really enjoyed watching them and the collaborative partnership. So now let's hear why talking to young people and with young people about these issues is so important. So Amanda, can we start with you? What do you know about sexual abuse and sexual assault of young people in Australia? And what do we know about works in the preventative space?
Sure. The recent Australian child maltreatment study, maybe if I'll start there, it kind of sets the scene for us. This is an Australian first and the largest, most comprehensive current data set that we have looking at prevalence, but it also looks at the nature and the impacts of child sexual abuse, and also within the context of other child maltreatment experiences as well. So it's a very large data set across the ages across Australia. And so from that, we're able to look at how prevalent or how common is this issue of child sexual abuse, and what does it actually look like in community? And so what we've realised from that is actually the issue is far bigger than what we first believed. So the statistics from that, which I'll start with, is so 28.5% of Australians over 16 report experiencing some form of child sexual abuse. So that's a huge statistic. It's 1 in 3 girls, 1 in 5 males, and 1 in 2 gender diverse individuals in the study experience child sexual abuse. So when we think about those numbers, it really has hit epidemic proportions in terms of how common this issue is of sexual violence within our community. So the study showed that while some areas of child sexual abuse or some types might be reducing across context, because such as in the family, so intrafamilial child sexual abuse, some are actually increasing. And that's really important for us to understand, because we've had things in our country like the Royal Commission into institutional responses to child sexual abuse, and we've seen more local inquiries and commissions like the recent Tasmanian Royal Commission, and we have some other inquiries happening across kind of Victoria and South Australia and New South Wales at the moment. But what we need to understand is that it's not a historical problem. It's not something that happens over there in institutional settings that doesn't happen anymore. It's not an issue of yesterday. It's still an issue of today. And when we look at more contemporary, I suppose, more recent history, we still find that there's over a quarter of our children experiencing child sexual abuse when we look at that cohort. And there's some trends and changes that we see. So we're seeing more child sexual abuse, which is actually being caused by other children and young people. So this is not always just adults that are actually harming children and young people. It's other children and young people, which makes the messages in these videos so very critical, particularly when we think about issues of exploitation, sexual exploitation, dating violence, and that sexual violence that can go on in peer relationships as well. One in four children of today will experience that sexual violence. We know that there's a complex interaction between and overlap between sexual violence, child sexual abuse, dating violence, sexual exploitation, and this concept that we call of harmful sexual behaviours and institutional sexual abuse. But regardless of what label we want to call it, regardless of how where it occurs, the impact is extremely devastating. So it's significant, it's often lifelong, it impacts all areas of functioning for a child or young person, and it's also not just confined to that child or young person, so it can be extremely devastating for family members and community members when there's an experience of sexual violence or child sexual abuse. It impacts individuals' capacity to engage in relationships, which can last with them well into adulthood, and difficulty engaging in school, and difficulty actually learning and paying attention, even if they are attending school. People can have issues with emotional regulation and behavioural problems, which can lead to things like self-harm or suicide. And then we think about some of the behavioural issues that come with experiences of child sexual abuse, particularly where it's extremely traumatising. And we only need to look to our juvenile justice system and our juvenile detention centres to see an overrepresentation of those children who have experienced child maltreatment and particularly child sexual abuse. So the impacts are extremely devastating, which leads, I suppose, to more of that notion of we absolutely need to think about prevention and we need to think about early intervention, because it really can permeate through every facet of a child or young person's life and really impact everyone around them. It's really important for us to remember, though, that some experiences of sexual abuse and child sexual abuse, some people may not be impacted by it, and you might not see overt signs that they've been impacted, or it might actually be that they're not impacted now, but it might come up and cause concerns and problems for them later in life, or they might kind of wax and wane throughout their lifetime, struggling with some of those issues. And of course, they can develop extreme sense of trauma and complex trauma and experience things like flashbacks and hyperarousal and those type of difficulties. So we really need to, yes, we need absolute responses for those people who have experienced child sexual abuse and sexual violence and exploitation, but we also need to think about prevention, and things like these videos actually really speak to the heart of prevention and that early intervention. With the prevalence rates so high and the impacts being so significant, that public health approach to prevention and really tackling the issue in line with the magnitude of the problem is actually really appropriate. And so we need to look at education programs for all of community, for children and young people and families and supporters, that really target and talk explicitly about child abuse and child sexual abuse. There are too many myths out there around sexual abuse, and I think these videos really speak to some of those misconceptions and really speak to some of those, draws some of the links between watching pornography and really highlighting to young people that, hey, that's not the norm. That's actually not how respectful sexual relationships or intimacy actually looks. And so it really kind of cuts to the core of some of those. Many people in community, though, and in families, just still don't really want to talk about this, but we absolutely have to. And we can see that through increased awareness and improved responses, that we can actually lower the rates of child sexual abuse. And we only need to look at the Australian child maltreatment study to see that, yes, we still have child sexual abuse in our current children, but it is actually getting less. And so we have to think that maybe that is a bit attributable to some of the increased awareness that we've had in recent years, with the introduction of things like the Royal Commission, and we have child safe standards and mandatory reporting and reportable conduct and those type of things. But these type of psychoeducation campaigns targeting all levels are really critical. Having them in schools and in early learning environments, local sport clubs or rec clubs, community centres, making them really accessible online, all the things that actually, you've tried to create here is really important. Some of the areas that I think, I was trying to reflect on this, that are really, if I could pick the top kind of things that I think it's important for kids and young people to know, it is really taking us back to that very basic of consent education, understanding bodily autonomy and understanding their rights, and understanding, educating children on what their rights are, and really teaching them and to recognise that they do have rights, and they can say no, and they need to really listen to those warning signs in their body, and that they can be assertive, and really teaching them how to feel comfortable with that voice, and how to feel like they can actually speak out if they're feeling uncomfortable, and that they are the boss of their bodies. And on the flip side of that, we need to teach parents of how to be aware and how to be vigilant and how to watch out, and really how to have those conversations with children. So, we've got a new national campaign at the moment that's in Australia, which is really speaks to that issue of, talk to your kids, talk all the time, have those conversations. And these videos are actually a great conversation starter for our young people. It can be really tricky sometimes to have a conversation about pornography or about consent or sexual relationships. But this could actually be a conversation starter. It could be a vehicle at which you can sit down with a young person and actually have a chat. And so, we have to remember that chances are kids are talking about sex. They're talking about consent in relationships. They're talking about what they like and what they don't, or what they've seen online. We don't want their education on sexuality to be from pornography and from their mates in the schoolyard. We want it to be evidence-based. We want it to be factual. We want to be able to encourage not just how they can, be healthy partners and be respectful partners, but how they can actually learn to expect that and demand that from their relationships as well. But we also need to teach them that it's really appropriate to have healthy sexual experiences, and we want them to explore their sexual identity and their relationships and intimate relationships, but we want them to be actually upskilled so they can do it in a really safe way, and they can actually flourish and be the best kind of versions of themselves in that space that they can be. So it's really, really important that we talk to our kids about these issues, and that we actually have these type of materials to help us do this, and that they actually they speak to kids. So they're not for the classroom teacher, they're they're not for the parent, but they actually are for the young people, so they can watch it, and then they can have those conversations with adults around them, and that's really important.
Thank you, Amanda. That was a great introduction, and very sobering. I think Professor Ben Matthews often uses that word when we talk about this data and statistics, and something really critical for us all. It's not just our particular sector, but as a whole community, and that call to action from that space. But also, I think you make the compelling argument around prevention, that we have seen the shoots of success in that space, and that if we put the energy and investment into that, we know it can work. And more so, getting the voices of children and young people to really take a strong role in that. And so I'd like to hand over now to Ruben. So Ruben, you've got experience obviously working with NAPCAN, representing young people in this space. So what are you hearing about what's needed to support young people safely in relationships, particularly in the area of sex in real life and online?
Yeah, Rob, thank you. May I also just say, Amanda, what a great response, and I might touch on a few of those points in my response, if I may. You mentioned prevention, and how these videos can really get to the heart of that. And I think it is so important to remember that education is such a powerful preventative tool. And again, we can see that in these videos. You also mentioned that we see perpetrators of child sexual abuse at times being young people. And I hear a lot of outdated arguments from peers or family members or just older people in my life about if we teach kids about sex and sexual safety, we're going to be encouraging them to have more sex. And we know that kids, young people are having sex already. So why not equip them with the knowledges that can make those experiences healthy, safe, fun, and enjoyable? We're doing a disservice to our young people if we don't promote and if we don't put out and create resources like we're seeing today. Back to your question, Rob, I think one of the biggest things that is needed in this space is just total non-judgment. Often there is this hierarchical divide between the educator and the young person. And we can at times be treated as though we don't really know what we're talking about, when, as Amanda pointed out before, young people are having conversations, early conversations about sex and what they might like and what they might not like. And we need the truth, and we need to be treated like we're not less than, like we're human, like we know what we're talking about, because these are important conversations. And we can't have these conversations be minimized or missed out upon for fear of things I touched on before, children having sex or encouraging sexual behavior. I also think through that education, destigmatization is really important. Fostering not only a relationship of sexual safety, but also a relationship where there is no shame towards sex. And one thing that was done through these videos, which I think was really important, as Melinda highlighted before, was the inclusion of, for example, NAPCAN Youth Speak Out, NISO, the council of which I'm an advisor on, and having councils such as ours be consulted with these education modules and with these videos. And I think that's integral because times are always changing, right? Every 5 years, there seems to be a new thing, and sometimes older educators can, through no fault of their own, be a little bit behind the ball. It's so integral that we, employ the knowledges of young people who are on the ground at present. I mean, I'm 20 at the moment. When I was 15, things are different now for 15-year-olds. If you get what I'm saying, technology is always changing, and we need to be asking who knows the current landscape best. Because when the landscape is changing, so too is child sexual abuse. And we see stuff that I was taught or maybe not taught is no longer relevant to the 15-year-olds, the teenagers of today. And so, we can see this being done through Life Without Barriers, employing NISO to be consulted during this. And it's just really encouraging. So I think back to that point, these are the key things that we need to be seen and that are wanted in this space, is the value and inclusion of our voices, non-judgment towards our experiences, but also just destigmatization and just honest conversations. A conversation is better than no conversation. You know what I mean? And I'm just really excited that these videos are starting to get off the ground. Thank you.
Thanks, Ruben. I think I'll paraphrase some of what you said there, but having young people having sex anyway, sexual experiences anyway, to give them the tools that allow them to do that in a safe way, like that. We could put that on a T-shirt, couldn't we? And just to make that a public statement, like it is. So it's really, really important to hear that message. So we are going to go now into having a look at the video. So that part of this webinar was to have a look at the videos and the sexual safety series for young people. So we're going to see snippets of the videos, and then we'll have an opportunity for each of the panel members to react to the videos and have a bit of a conversation about how they found the videos and where they think the relevance of them are. So Melinda, can I hand over to you for the official launch of the videos, please?
Thank you. Can I just get a thumbs up, Rob? Can you see that screen? Yep, thank you. Okay. I'm really proud to launch these videos. What you can see there is the That's the 6 topics. There's 6 videos. They're between 3 and 6 minutes long, each video. Today I'm going to show you a little snippet of each video. So you'll see 6 snippets. And as we go through, each slide will just show you some of the key messages for each video.
This video is all about respectful, intimate relationships.
Sorry, that just went ahead of me slightly. The first video, respectful, intimate relationships. So you can see there just some of the key messages in that video.
This video is all about respectful, intimate relationships. Knowing your boundaries and understanding others' boundaries is important to keeping relationships safe and respectful. People can change their minds about boundaries. You might feel okay about doing something now, but next week you might change your mind. This is okay.
It's important to know how to treat each other well in our relationships. No kind of abuse is ever okay.
Fact or cap?
In a healthy relationship, people feel safe and respected.
Facts. Yes, they do. This is exactly what it should feel like.
Video number 2 is about consent, and shows some of the key messages that are in the video about consent.
A simple way to think about what proper consent is trust. Both people need to know what each other are consenting to and feel empowered to speak up if it starts feeling wrong.
You need to be really sure that the person you're with consents to what's going on.
Fact or cap?
She says yes when she's sober, but now she's drunk. Is that still a yes?
Cap. People can't consent if they're drunk, drug affected, unconscious, or asleep. I am in charge of my own body.
Fact. Yes, you are. You have the right to decide what happens to your body and who you share it with.
Video number 3 is about sexual abuse and sexual assault, and those are the key messages that are in this video. We'll have a look.
We need to talk about what sexual abuse or assault is because knowledge is power. It's any sexual behaviour that you haven't consented to, and you need to know it's more than just not okay, it's crap. It doesn't matter if you've been partying, drinking, or using drugs. It's never your fault.
Sexual exploitation. There's been quite a bit in the media about this topic actually recently. This is very topical for our young people at the minute.
Sexual exploitation is when a person takes advantage of a power imbalance to force or entice someone into engaging in sexual activity in return for something.
Sexual extortion or sextortion is online blackmail. If this happens to you, don't pay any money, don't send any more images.
Report it to the app involved, report it to the eSafety Commissioner at esafety.gov.au and to the police.
Intimate images, also very topical in the news recently. This is an important one for our young people as well.
This video is all about intimate images.
If someone sends you an intimate image of another person and the person in the image didn't consent to you receiving it, the person who sent it is breaking the law.
Don't ever use intimate images for revenge or to hurt someone you're angry with. Fact or cap?
I can send a nude picture of myself to the girl I like as a surprise. It's super sexy and I'm sure she'll love it.
Cap. That's sexual harassment. You need consent before sending nudes of yourself to anyone.
And this is the last one, number 6, all about porn. And we know that young people are watching and consuming porn, whatever we might like to think about that. So this is an important one.
Do you think action movies are real life? Of course not. It's just like in porn videos. It's not real life sex. It's actors faking it for entertainment. Watching porn can seem exciting, but if you watch it often, it can have damaging effects on your mental health and your relationships. Why do you think I'd want to do that?
That's what I saw in the video my mate showed me. I thought you'd like it.
It's like taking drugs and needing more each time. You can end up needing to see more and more extreme porn.
Okay, that's it. Just going to stop sharing. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Melinda. Now we're going to, I see there are some questions in the Q&A, which we'll come back to after, I think, because we might just get a reaction from some of our panelists first, just so we can maximize the time. We will share the video links, and what you saw there was a snippet. So we're not showing the full length videos because that would take up most of the webinar today. So the full lengths are much more detailed, and they go for a few more minutes beyond the sort of little snippets that you've seen there. Amazing, and just love the actors, love the acronyms. And I also saw there was a couple of people there who'd learned something already in the chat line about a few little sort of acronyms and things. So Amanda, tell us why these messages are really important for young people to hear.
Thanks. I think if I can start with pornography, maybe, because I think this is probably it's really topical. It's something that we, as an adult, we feel extremely uncomfortable talking about with kids. And we might even feel extremely uncomfortable talking about it with other adults and in our own intimate relationships. But it is something that we can't get away from. So our kids, and, Ruben was mentioning kind of even, when he was a 15-year-old is different to what 15-year-olds are actually experiencing now. When I was a kid, there was no online pornography. There was no ready access on your phones. We didn't have phones. Kids today live in a completely digital world. They are accessing, whether they like it or not, whether they are willingly accessing it or not, they are being exposed to sexually graphic content and pornography at alarming rates at a really young age. So kids as young as 10 are regularly being exposed to explicit sexual content online. They're not cognitively or emotionally in a developmental space where they can actually understand that. They can't properly understand what they're seeing on the screen. They still have some physiological responses sometimes to what they're seeing on the screen, but they don't have a frame to conceptualize that. So what do they do with that? And that's where we get this development of really unhealthy, disrespectful, unsafe notions of what intimacy and sexual relationships are. And we saw one of the clips there with the cartoon characters and the boy kind of saying, I thought you'd like that. That's what I've seen on videos. And what we see with some of the research and myself having worked with a lot of young kids, a lot of people will say, well, I accepted that type of sexual contact because I thought that's what was expected of me. I thought all my peers liked that as well. And increasingly we're seeing more violent sexual activity within young sexual relationships. We're seeing things like, earlier vaginal penetration and anal penetration, where that wasn't really a thing that was very common with young people kind of 5, 10, 15 years ago. And so pornography, it's really important to talk to kids about it because, as I said, they're not ready and they don't have an understanding, but it's there. Same as things like consent and like boundaries and even the video there where it talks about sexual abuse and sexual assault. Now, that's a really challenging topic to actually talk about with kids, but we actually have to talk about it with kids, unfortunately. We can't shy away from it. And, Ruben mentioned a while ago that if we're actually doing kids a disservice if we don't talk to them about these things and they're having these conversations. So, knowledge is power. We need to talk to kids about what's illegal. We need to talk to kids about sexting. We need to talk to them about sharing their digital, their sexual images online and with friends and where they might end up. We absolutely have to have those conversations because our kids are living this. We're not exposing them to anything that they don't actually know, that they're not already talking about. These videos are giving them a frame to actually understand how they can do things safely, how they can explore safely, and how they can bring consent and respect and safety into their intimate relationships and exploration, which is really the goal.
So I might go now to Ruben. I do notice that in the chat there's a number of questions there which we may not get to answer all of them, but we'll try to loop back on a couple of them. But before we do that, just interested in your response to the videos, why you think they work. But somebody did make a question about how best to engage young people or tips in these videos. And I wouldn't mind if you could sort of talk to that as well when you're responding.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Robin. Thanks for the person who asked that question in the Q&A function. I think reflecting on my past points, what stood out to me apart from the actual content of the videos so much was the acting and the script and how it just felt so normal. Often, as I mentioned before, we're spoken to funnily, not like speaking to us as though we're humans, and that felt like a really honest, a really genuine interaction, especially in the fact or cap bits. It just felt totally normal, and I really liked that, and that's kind of what stood out to me. And I think to answer that question in the Q&A function, not every conversation is going to be perfect, but a conversation being perfect isn't the outcome we're looking for. We're looking to have conversations and to help our young people, us as young people, in navigating these spaces with safety. So I think, you know, if you're unsure, doing some research is always handy. There are resources like this. There are resources online. And of course, using your best judgment as to whether those are appropriate or not. And then having age-appropriate conversations. You won't know until you try, and it will get better. It's not a one-time conversation. These conversations have to be continued and ongoing. But I think back to the message is just to really try and to break down those barriers, break down those walls. If you're awkward about these topics, your kids are going to be awkward about these topics, and the ripple-on effects of that can be so long-lasting and harmful. But with these videos, why I think they work, I just reflect on my time in school, and I wish I had something like this. You know, I was thinking when I was looking through the videos before the presentation and in preparing for this panel, I had no clue that the sharing of intimate images under the age of 18 was a crime until a few months before I turned 18. And I found that out from a close friend. I didn't find that out from school. I didn't find that out from an educator. And just to see that made me so happy, because I can see that things are already changing. And, you know, with NISA, we do a lot of consultancy work with videos and education modules like this. But this just really stood out, and I had a good feeling about this from the get-go. It felt different, and that's why I was so stoked to be here today. But I just think the content is, it's digestible, it's not complex, it's age appropriate, and I'm excited to see where they go.
That's great. Thanks, Ruben. Now, the brains trust behind the tech and the video, Mark, love to get your thoughts on your approach to making these videos, and also just you know, obviously screen picking somebody. There's been a couple of comments just around how do you pick the right language, and the commentary from the young, you know, making sure the young people are hitting the mark and what would fit and what doesn't fit. So yeah, any comments you have in relation to how you go about these videos, and if you'd like to talk about the Empower app as well.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks, guys. So we're discussing this. I personally believe it's one of the massive issues we face as humans. We don't ever get taught all these things. I know from my age now, getting a little bit older, grey hairs are starting to wind down, it's 41, but I was never taught any of this when I was young. And the way for me to actually ever experience it was to go to a festival, and I walked into a festival and they said, oh, here's the issue, here's what consent is, you know, like ask someone this, and we all abide by these consent issues that go into a festival. So the way that we've always approached movie making and stuff is always a bit controversial, and what we do as an organisation, we try to think outside the box and utilise a lot of young people to make decisions. So it's just, Melinda was just a great orchestrator behind all of this. She just had some great ideas, and she was just, the way that she tuned into the whole process of this was just a really pleasure to work with her. And how we came together with it a lot was just like, what are you into? Let's not think about from a perspective as being a bit old, you know, like the coming generation of social media, everything, it's short, it's quick, it's animation. Kids want to see something that's connecting to them. They want to utilize young role models. So we've got a couple of actors that are quite predominant on the scene. And we've got them to come up and be a part of the process. And when we did the process, we thought about, because they're quite young, you know, they're early 20s, and just bringing in what's the language of the youth today, what are they responding with? Let's from a bit more of a younger perspective. Let's leave it open. Let's think about how we can make it cool with animation. How can we make it good? A lot of what I see in this space for a long time, and it's a long story. I'm an ex-street kid from Brisbane. I left home at 12 and grew up till I was 16 and on the street. So this is a major part of my world that nobody ever got taught. Nobody ever understood. I was a ward of the state myself. So life out barriers, you know, I've done a lot of work. It's like, how do you get through these kids? So it needs to be different. It needs to be cutting edge. It needs to be youth focused. It needs to be able to bring in what they're talking about, the thing. Because if we create an educational means, as you said before, because the school system doesn't really do it. It's a 200-year-old system that's still serving the Industrial Revolution as an ex-high school teacher, but it hasn't been really willing to change so much in the robotic revolutionary space. So how do we utilize the means of what the youth are utilizing, and then creating something that's actually going to be usable? And well, so that might actually carry on to this Empower app. So what we've been creating for 3 years is, we hope to be the world's most innovative mental health app, which it's not very hard to compete with, because it's very alien to youth in general in the mental health space and these sort of topics that are coming about. So what I started off from years ago was searching people from all around the world, from some of the best artists, global specialists, from all the hip hop professionals that kids like. And we started developing a knowledge-based program. There's hundreds of videos on youth space. It's from cooking, or it's from Chris Hemsworth doing gym stuff, or it's from yoga, Pilates teachers, mental health experts, all these things that the kids look up to, some of the best MCs in the world. So creating a space where they want to go towards for mental health, because it's not alien to them. Their idols are the people they're looking up to, and they're teaching them this space. So that turned into a lot more, not just one of the biggest digital resources for mental health available in Australia at the moment, turned into an app. So then how do they make that fun? The kids are going to be utilized. So we turn it into, so it's a hip hop app. You can do multiple track recordings, find artists from all around the world. You can task manage your day. You have a wise one that's easy, like 300 books decoded into it. So it tells you about forgiveness, you know, sexuality, all that sort of stuff. And it teaches you on actions into your day. It's got a film clip recorder. You can make films and collaborate with your mates if you all go to an event. It's got a community inbuilt into it. It's got I'm missing out on some things. So it's a huge app. But what it is a toolkit. We're not given a toolkit in the mental health space or in the sexual health space at all. And once we're given these tools, like a carpenter, you're given the tools about to navigate the space. So if I won't take you all through it because it's just about to launch, but some of the biggest names in the industry have come onto this app in this space, and so a lot of people are really behind it, and it's pivotal timing that we're about to launch this and create a space up there for life without barriers, that it can actually be about sexual health. So the kids that are actually accessing it, because you want to create a portal where people are coming onto, it's not a sexual health and mental health is not a disposition. It's not something you have to be sick to be able to look at. So that's what this is. We have an amazing opportunity, and it's been just poignant with these to work with Life Without Barriers and this partnership. Melinda's just been absolutely unreal, and has had like beautiful creative ideas, but we have to think innovatively. And what's really good about this app, we've just knocked out some of the best innovation awards in Australia, and it's getting a lot of backing behind it and stuff like that. So we have to think innovatively, we have to think different, we have to be with the times and say it's completely changing. Youth's voice is very important in it, and it's just animation, ways to capture the audience simply, easily, strong messaging. It's the best education they can do. So we work with 100 kids at once in workshops around Australia. And then once we work with them, then we give them the toolkit, which is the mental health app. So we'll teach kids about from all these greater issues, and then say, okay, right. And I say to the kids, have you ever been taught this? And they're always like, no. And like, how important do you think this is? And they're like, so important. So education's got to be primary, and then it's got to be something that's, that's sustainable, and something where the kids can access it, they can share it, they can get these messages across there. And as much as I don't love digital technology, if digital technology to the right purpose is where youth are utilizing it. So if we can structure about how they're learning the right content, because it is a massive educational medium, then you have the upper hand. So everybody I've shown, from adults to kids, they're just like, oh, especially adults, like, why didn't I learn this when I was younger? And I was like, it's so important. And actually, it blows me away. This is not a massive thing happening already in Australia, because these important messaging is absolutely poignant. It's absolutely what needs to happen. People need to be educated in this space, and how so many of us don't already know, and that it's not massive in that arena. It's interesting. So I think, Melinda, you've cracked a big thing here. All you guys working here. So it's a massive thing that needs to be sort of brought to youth in general. So it's great to be about part of it. And what I like to do is think innovatively and differently. So and that's what our team does. So it's been a great partnership.
Thanks, Mark, and thanks to all the technical support behind in your team, and the actors and everyone who's been involved from your end has been fantastic. We've got a little bit of time for a couple of questions, so I might go to the top sort of questions and work my way through. And this one I might ask to you, Melinda. There's a question in relation to are any of the videos speaking to experiences for queer or gender diverse young people? Or are they primarily cisgender heteronormative lens? And just in relation to some of the challenges in reconciling gender identity, sexual orientation, and history for some of the young people that people are working with. So any sort of thoughts or comments in relation to that?
Thanks, Rob. And thanks for the question. It's a good question. When we made the videos, we worked quite hard to try to have a broad representation of young people and relationships in the videos. Having said that, they are not videos specific, so they're not videos specifically for hetero young people or cis young people, and they're also not specifically for queer young people. And it is an interesting question, actually, because in the preparation for this webinar, Amanda mentioned how useful it might be to actually create more videos specifically for queer young people. So, you know, hopefully that can be on our horizon. But for this initial series of 6, we just tried to show as much diversity as we could.
Thanks, Melinda. Another question sort of following on from that question was in relation to keeping information age appropriate for children and understanding their sexuality at different stages of development. And so maybe, Amanda, I'll go to you on this one, just around where these videos should be pitched in terms of developmental levels, and is there an age where it wouldn't be appropriate, and how best to manage that?
Yeah, I think people obviously need to show their discretion, and I think we in society, we always want someone to put a target on it and a box to kind of go, this is for kind of, you know, 13 to 15-year-olds, and this one over here is for kind of 10 to 13-year-olds. We have to remember that kids develop really differently, and so, you know, one child at kind of 12, 13 might actually be extremely emotionally not ready for this. They might not be in a space, it might be the wrong time, and if you expose them to it, it's going to be very confronting and very challenging. Other 13-year-olds, you know, might have actually been ready for this type of discussion and content kind of 2-3 years ago. So I think people absolutely need to, any adults in this space that wanting to share these videos with the kids, you need to watch it first yourself, and you need to have individual children in mind to kind of think around what's their emotional capacity like, what's their social kind of environment and context like, you know, where are they at developmentally and what's going on for them. Would all the videos be appropriate for them, or maybe just 1 or 2? And then I think the bit that we can't, you really can't forget, is these should be paired with ongoing conversations. So like if we kind of see something online, it's a snippet, it's a little bit of information, which is a great piece of information. But as adults, it's our responsibility to then support young people to take it to the next level, help them contextualize it, really open the door for conversations. And I think whilst these videos, a good example is, you know, whilst these videos aren't, you know, specifically targeting the queer community and really digging down and really looking at some of those complexities and issues that young people are facing when they're grappling and experimenting and trying to work through their sexual and gender identity and explore that, these videos can be good conversation starters for those type of things. For me personally, you know, I think these videos are absolutely targeted towards the high school age children. You know, I think if you were showing it to a group of kind of 12-year-olds within high school, and I use high school and primary school as a distinction. But, you know, if I think you were showing it to a bunch of year sevens, so that's about the 12, kind of 13 year age range, then I would want to be making sure that there was conversations wrapped around it. You know, that was, if it was in a school environment, there's kind of other additional psychoeducation, spaces to talk, spaces to reflect, same within the family home. Older kids, they might be able to kind of watch it independently, and they probably would really value kind of having chats with their mates about it, you know, and that could be a facilitated conversation in terms of, you know, so what do you think about either, you know, I've sent nude kind of pictures of myself to a mate before, and I didn't realize it was illegal. Exactly what Ruben was saying, you know, that's not a common kind of known thing, but the kids could really take the information in the videos when they're a bit older and probably self-generate some conversation and some extra learning and exploration of that stuff. Whereas younger kids probably need a bit more scaffolding and a bit more help from adults to kind of do that. So that's kind of, for me, where developmentally I think the videos sit. I'm not sure what Melinda kind of her intention in terms of developing them, but we do need to be mindful and really consider that not two kids at 13 are the same. You know, we really need to think about the individual needs.
Perfect, thank you. Melinda, feel free to sort of jump into that, but one for probably anyone can really answer this one. There's a question just in relation to the use of the term factor or cap, and that it's trying to use current slang, but it's also considered that this is African American vernacular English, and does it come across cringy, and that some teenagers, this particular person was asked the question, may laugh at that slang being used in a video. So the question was sort of generally about peer review, but I suppose from others' perspective, you know, maybe starting with you, Ruben, like your thoughts about the community that you're with in terms of young people, how they will engage with the video, and then noting your point, Amanda, earlier, that it's one of those things that you're going to have to use with different audiences and determine, is it the right fit for the right audience, because no one size is going to fit every single particular group or community.
Sorry, I just had some trouble unmuting myself then. Yeah, thanks, Robin. Thanks for the question. So this was reviewed by a few members of our council, not all of the members, I think 4 out of our 17 or 18 that we have. And none of us are the age that we would have seen these videos, but nonetheless, we were a youth perspective. And we did raise the potential for this to come across. But ultimately that conversation went back to the creative team and the team at the higher part of this. But I'm not sure if the videos were peer reviewed by younger participants. As I said, factor or cap was something that was going around when I was a young kid. I can't answer as to whether it's something that is appropriate now, because I'm not a younger teenager anymore, and that comes back to the point before of things always changing. But for the question, the videos were peer reviewed, and there were things amended in the videos that some of us found cringy before that you didn't get to see today because they were taken out, which is great that in this collaborative fashion, youth voices were recognised and uplifted and empowered. That's really encouraging to see. But yeah, I'm not sure of the scope of that peer review, but I know that at least in a certain facet it was peer reviewed. I think our age ranges in that consultation team ranged from 17 to 23, is my knowledge.
Thank you. Now, I'm conscious of time. Now, I wouldn't mind just giving each panel member one quick final sort of words or comments to wrap up. So maybe if I start with you, Mark, any final sort of comments, thoughts, the reflections on the videos or the, you know, steps forward?
No, just I don't know, just absolutely found the experience great. I think it's so important. I think also too, what you just said before about the about raising, you know, like these questions with the creator ideology and being these messages. I think this is a great platform that's already started to get those bigger messages already across, and then to actually start to pinpoint into this other messaging as well. Like it gets quite a bit of attraction through a series or whatever, and I think that opens up the opportunity to get more into these other distinctions, other categories from a centre queer society, anything that we want to go into that's a bit deeper, because there's so many issues that would come out as well that kids are not realising about. For example, protection and all that sort of stuff in this world, and how that's and the effects of this, and how to be safe and how to be protective. And I think those sort of topics save lives, because again, on the education space, I've never been taught it. I'd never really known anything about it. It'd be so great to have learned it when I was younger. So great for everybody to learn it at all times. So I don't know, just proud of all the team for actually creating something like this. I think it's very cutting edge and just very important. It's such a massive issue, and it's a great way to educate youth about it. So thanks you guys for having me on.
And thanks. And my sort of link would be on your space is that we just need more money for resources to create a whole stack more videos and keep them contemporary, so that we can keep adding to them. Amanda, final comments, thoughts?
Try and keep it brief. I think taking on Mark's point, there's a whole suite of other resources that really need to be developed in an evidence-based, young person informed kind of way that is creative and really reaches young people, that can be used by young people, but also by parents and teachers and community with young people. The national campaign at the moment in terms of talking to kids, I think these videos are a great representation of how we can begin the conversation with children, and we absolutely must. We have to, and if we want to keep our kids safe, then we need to start the conversations and keep them going, and put our own baggage and embarrassment aside as adults that might not be kind of cool or up to date in the space, and really just have those chats with kids.
Thank you, Ruben, and then Melinda in the last minute. And just so people who've got to dial off, there'll be a slide that'll go up at the very end, and we will send an email around that gives information about how to access all the videos, so that you'll be able to access that before we finish up. Ruben.
Thanks, Rob. I want to touch on Mark's point really briefly as my final point before, how you mentioned, I think you said something, and I'm going to paraphrase here, about how this is looking to be the most innovative app in the mental health space, something along those lines, and how you said it's not hard, there's not much competition. That's so exciting, and it's so exciting that new precedents are being set and new standards are being raised, and I am just really excited for young people to have access to these videos, because I think, as the videos highlighted and as Amanda highlighted, knowledge is power, and knowledge can keep our young people safe.
Lovely, thank you. And Melinda.
Okay, final words are, of course, thank you to the AUDA Foundation. Without that small grant funding, this wouldn't have been possible. So it was really exciting. The videos are evidence-based. The messages that are in the videos are messages that we know help prevent harm and abuse to young people. The details that you can see on the screen help you to find the videos on our website. Get in touch with me, get in touch with Mark. Somebody asked about the Empower app image. There it is. And the website where you can find more details about the Empower app. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, that brings us to the end of our time today, right bang on 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, depending upon what part you are in the world, or maybe 11 o'clock if you're in a different part of the world. And so thank you to our panel. Thank you to Amanda, Ruben, Mark, Melinda, and also to the technical support behind the team for pulling it all together. And we look forward to you joining us in some other Stride series in the future, and webinars and sharing and learning together. So thank you very much. Join with me in thanking all the panel members, and hope you have a real good day, and thanks for your time.